Okay, the next one that we want to look at is SFTP, and that stands for Secure FTP, or Secure File Transfer Protocol. It is an SSH file transfer protocol, and it provides for remote file transfer, access, and management, much like FTPS. However, whereas FTP tunneled through an SSH connection, SFTP is a full-service secure file transfer protocol. So they operate in much the same way. They just actually work under the hood a little bit differently. You just need to know there is a distinction between FTPS and SFTP. I know it can be a little bit confusing. All right, so SFTP operates over TCP port 115, and as I said, it's a full-service secure file transfer protocol in and of itself. The distinction being, as I have listed here, FTP over SSH is FTP tunneled through an SSH connection. Okay, the next one is SNMP, or Simple Network Management Protocol, and that functions over UDP port 161. And SNMP is used for remote management of a lot of different devices, remote management and also reporting of information from IP devices. On some devices, you install an SNMP agent. On some, it's built in. So it just depends on the device that you're monitoring. Typically, it's used for routers, switches, things along those lines. So it can pull information back, and it can also allow you to configure remotely certain devices. A lot of times it's just used to kind of get the health of different devices in your environment and report back key metrics such as CPU or utilization, throughput, so on and so forth. All right, so with SNMP, there are 3 different versions. Things that you really should understand from a security perspective is that version 1 and version 2 offered no security and no encryption. Version 3, which is the newest standard, does offer encryption. Okay, we need login credentials to actually access, so definitely use version 3 whenever possible within your environment. All right, so it can be vulnerable to brute force and dictionary attacks. So when you have your login credentials for your SNMP devices, even if you're using v3, make sure that you use secure passwords. All right, so don't use like password or 1234 or all the typical things that we say that hold true for normal passwords for users. Also, that same type of mentality should also apply when we're talking about devices themselves. Okay, now the last one on the application layer protocols would be NetBIOS, and NetBIOS stands for Network Basic Input-Output System, and it's a very old protocol actually. It can provide name resolution, connectionless communication via the datagram service, and connection-oriented communication through the session service. So it is basically providing name resolution in a typical Windows environment. Now the things we need to be aware of is TCP or UDP over port 137, 138, and 139, and as I have listed here, 137 is for the name service, so that provides name resolution services. 138 is for the datagram service, which provides connectionless, best effort type of connections or connectivity, much like UDP. And then port 139 is the sessions service, kind of like TCP versus UDP. Okay, port 139 provides a session-oriented or connection-oriented service. So it provides for different types of communication. Security considerations, it's vulnerable to NetBIOS name service spoofing or NBNS spoofing. So basically, much like we have in DNS where we could poison the cache, so to speak, and put in a false name, have it point to somewhere else, we could do the same thing with NetBIOS and have that name resolve to a different target than what it's really intended or should be pointing to. So again, if it's not needed in your environment, and it's harder to disable that than it sounds. It sounds like when Windows 7 first came out, or actually Vista prior to Windows 7, it's like, NetBIOS is no longer needed. We don't need the Win service anymore. And then we kind of found out that really isn't the case because a lot of services and so forth still depend on NetBIOS. So if it's in fact able to be disabled in your environment, then I would advise you to do so. But you're going to have to do some due diligence and check to make sure that nothing else depends on it. All right, so disable if not needed. Otherwise, make sure you keep a close watch on that.